Hey guys, I have a question for you. Have you ever been in that situation where you know and you feel convicted by the Holy Spirit to preach the gospel or to share the love of God with somebody or just to, show who God really is to people, but at the same time, you've never done it before? You've never ministered to somebody, you've never shared the gospel before, you've never shared the love of God with someone before, and so therefore, you don't know how to do it. And so you're stuck in this situation where you have all of this conviction to go out and do this stuff, but you've never done it before and you don't know how to do it. Well, if that's you and you're in that situation, let me tell you something. I picked out a great Bible passage and a great message, and basically what I've come up with are very, very practical ways to share Jesus with the world. And so that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to show you these Bible passages, and I'm going to tell you how you can share the love of God with people all around the world. And it's very, very easy to do. So let's roll the intro, and we'll go ahead and get started. So what I want to do is a little bit different, actually. What I want to do in this video is a lot different than what I've done in pretty much all the other videos. I'm going to start out with a story. Because why not? I mean, it just seems like a really great idea. Now, the story that I want to tell you is actually like a really great story because it's something that we all can relate to. It doesn't matter if you're 15 years old or 35 years old or 55 years old or 100 years old. If you're 100 years old and you're on YouTube, you got to comment and let me know. But still, it's something that we're able to relate to because we've all pretty much been in this situation before. And if you haven't, eventually at some point in your life, you will. And I'll tell you why at the end of this video. So this story is, I'm not going to say that it's a true story, but I'm also not going to deny it being a true story. I'm just going to tell you it's a story that may or may not be true, that may or may not have happened to somebody that I know. Maybe this is not true. I don't know. Maybe it is. But the point is it's actually a really good story. And what I like about this story is it shows you how badly false doctrine has really crept into the church and really messed everybody up. So what this story has to do with is light and darkness. The kingdom of darkness and the kingdom of light. Basically, God's kingdom and the devil. Sin and holiness, and how these two things work. In Christianity, we always say, "Live in the world, but not be of the world." And then we come up with all these rules of how to not live in the world, which doesn't really make sense. And so what this story is about is it's pretty much a real life story about a real life example. And of course, it's a real story of a real life example that really shows you how to share Jesus with the world. But there's a little hook on this story. The little hook is actually what makes the story so great. Is that the hook is that the situation that this person is in, the story I'm getting ready to tell you about has a person in it, and the situation that they're in is very bad. And I think this is where we can all relate to it, because at some point in our life, we're all going to be in really bad situations, and we're going to have to live in the world. We're just going to have to live in the world. And sometimes we don't get to make the rules. Sometimes we just have to be there and go with the flow. So the story is pretty common to lots and lots of people. Long story short, there's a young man, and the young man gets invited to go to a party. And this is the type of party, what we could call it like a high school party, possibly, maybe a college, frat kind of party or whatever. It's a college age, high school age party. Basically, everybody's, 18, 19, 21, 23 years old. And if you're older than that, that's fine. I'm sure you've had a lot of times in college or high school where you went out drinking with your friends, or maybe people who weren't your friends, and you had a lot of fun, or maybe you didn't have a lot of fun. I don't know, but I hope you had fun, because that's probably why you went in the first place. The point is that everybody's been in this situation before, and if you haven't, you probably will eventually at some point in your life. Somebody's going to drag you to a party. It might be a really lame party, like a New Year's party or something when you're 50, but yeah, the same stuff happens at those parties that happens at 20-year-old parties. The point is that this young man gets taken to this party, and he's hanging out there and everything, but The thing about this man is very interesting because he's at his party and there's all these, guys and all these girls there and everybody's drinking. There's people doing drugs, smoking weed, doing drugs, cocaine, all the good stuff in life that you're not supposed to do. And this young man is at this ridiculous party, right? Here's the little catch. He's at the party, but this young man is a Christian. And so this is where things get very, very bizarre. Because when we hear stories like this, it really reveals where our heart is at. We hear stories like this, and all of a sudden, our level of judgment goes up, and we say, what do you think that young man's doing at this party? He shouldn't even be there in the first place. Okay, well, my question to you is, how many parties have you been to while you're claiming to be a Christian? So, take the plank out of your own eye before you try and take the speck out of somebody else's. This really shows the arrogance that's in our heart. We want to make rules for everybody else to follow, but we don't even want to follow our own rules. So the young man's at the party, and he's a Christian. And so, he's kind of like caught between the world of, I know I don't want to go get drunk, but I'm also not afraid to have a drink. So, he drinks or whatever, but he's not doing drugs. He's not having sex with people. He's not trying to get all drunk and liquored up and, take his clothes off and go streaking down the street or whatever kids are doing these days. He's just trying to be there with his friends, have a good time, and, be a Christian in an environment that may not be Christian. And there's one really great twist to this story that I'm going to tell you about in a little bit. But before we do, I just want to take about 20 seconds to tell you about my YouTube channel and why I think you should subscribe. First of all, this is a Bible study channel. And what we do here is study the Bible because we take the Bible seriously and we seriously study the Bible. My goal for this channel is to get to 1 million subscribers. So if you want to help me out, go ahead and click the subscribe button. Oh, and also I forgot to tell you, my name is Adam Jordan Clark and I publish a brand new video every single day. And when you hit the subscribe button, you help me in reaching the goal of 1 million subscribers, and you get a video like this every day. So we have a passage that we're going to go to today, and we're going to talk about it. And we also got to make, enough time to go back to the story and, get to the good stuff. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Bible. This is Matthew chapter 5. Verses 13 to 16. And this is the famous part in the Sermon on the Mount. It's called the Salt and Light. And I'm sure you guys have all heard this passage before, but let's go ahead and read it, and then we'll talk about it. It reads, "You are the salt of the earth, but if salt becomes tasteless, by what will it be made salty? It is good for nothing any longer except to be thrown outside and trampled underfoot by men. But you are the light of the world. A city located on the top of a mountain that cannot be hidden. Nor do they light a lamp and place it under a basket, but on a lampstand, and it shines on all those in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before people, so that they can see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven." So this is just one of those passages we always talk about. I'm sure there are plenty quotations here that you've heard before, like you're the salt of the earth. If it loses its saltiness, blah, 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 city on a hill, so on and so forth. We've heard all this stuff before, but what we haven't really heard is a good application of this stuff. And the reason why I decided to format this video in this way, start out with a story and then go to the Bible and kind of form a teaching around this whole story is to show you something very, very important. It's actually something that I really want you to see. And what I want you to see is this. When we start telling stories about all the bad stuff that we've done, or maybe somebody that we know has done, where we've quote unquote lived in the world and we have been of the world, you go to a party, you're drinking or something, or maybe even doing drugs with them, I don't know, but you do something stupid or whatever. And, people judge all the time about this kind of stuff. Okay, and I'm not saying you should go to a party or something like that. I'm just trying to give a good example of a real life thing that people go through all the time. And so, you end up going to a party, or someone else goes to a party or something, and there's bad stuff happening at parties, right? Because that's what a party is. It's a party to have fun, okay? And so we never understand how to apply this passage. And so what I'm trying to show you is something very simple. How do we take the application from this passage and apply it to real life? Well, it tells you right here. It says, let your light shine before men. Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that in order to let your light shine before men, you got to go to some dark places. I mean, it goes on to tell us here. It says, who lights a lampstand and puts it underneath the table? Look, let me tell you something, and this is going to hurt a lot of your people's feelings out there, and I understand it, especially the youth pastors. So if you're a youth pastor watching this, it's really going to hurt your feelings. But let me just tell you something up front. If you're telling people to stay away from the world and stay out of the world and don't do all this crazy stuff, you're 100% wrong. You're 100% wrong. Life is not about making rules. Christianity is not about making rules, because when we make these rules, what we're doing is we're taking the lamp and we're putting it underneath a table. We're not letting our light shine before men. You know, the problem with parties is not the fact that there's sin there and we don't want our Christian young men and women going there. No, the problem is that we're not telling our Christian young men and women to go to these parties and let their light shine before men. That's the problem. People hear that and they go, well, what do you mean? Well, I'll come back to my story that I started out with. This young man's a Christian and he's at a party and there's a lot of drinking and drugs going on and girls and guys and sex and all kinds of bad stuff that you're not supposed to do as a Christian. But he's there. You know, and he's a Christian. He's a Christian who lives by this passage and says, well, I got to let my light shine before men. Why am I going to go to church and let my light shine before other people who are already in the light? That doesn't do any good. The only thing that I can do good in this world is go to the dark places to let the light shine. I don't want to go to church to hang out with my friends. I already do that. Now I need to go and hang out with people who aren't saved so I can share Jesus with them. Not everybody's going to want to hear the gospel up front. Sometimes they got to hear the gospel in a different way. Sometimes you got to build a relationship with people. They got to get comfortable with you, and you got to know that there's some trust there in order for them to really hear what you're about. Sometimes you got to figure out what they're about first before they'll figure out what you're about. So this young man's at the party, and there's a girl there. You know, he may or may not like her. Who knows? But there's a girl there. And there's some other dudes who like this girl too. And it's a party, you know. It's a good old-fashioned party too. A lot of drinking, a lot of drugs, a lot of sex, a lot of good stuff, right? And so the girl's there, you know, and there's a bunch of dudes kind of like, you know, surrounding this little girl or whatever. And long story short, you know, these types of things happen at these kinds of parties. But basically, they try and talk the girl into taking off her clothes. And she said, why don't you strip down and get naked or something, right? In front of all these people. And when you're in a situation like that, especially as a young lady, right? Obviously, there's a lot of peer pressure. You want to be accepted. You know, you're kind of lonely. You don't have a boyfriend. You know, you want people to like you, and you got to do stuff to get people to like you. You know, maybe you got some insecurities, whatever the case may be. You know, so what I'm saying is, like, there's a high likelihood that this person's probably going to strip down naked for all these dudes because why not? It just seems like the right thing to do at the time. Well, that's until you kind of factor in the fact that there's a Christian at the party who says, you know, I got to let my light shine before men. So the Christian dude's standing there in the room, and all he does is walk up to the girl and say, hey, you know what? You're better than that. You know, you don't have to do that. And something clicks in the girl's head, and she goes, you know what? You're absolutely right. I don't have to strip down in front of all these dudes. I don't have to give into this type of peer pressure. So my question to you is actually really simple. What do you think would happen if this young man was not at that party? What I'm trying to explain to you is something very, very important. We always like to talk about these passages. We always like to talk about these letting your light shine before men, because they make great sermons and they make great YouTube clips and they make great motivational speeches. But when it really comes down to it, most people in Christianity are avoiding the house parties. They're avoiding the bar scenes and the club scenes and all the bad things that are happening in this world because they've taken their light and they've put it underneath the table. Then they want to say, well, let's let our light shine before men. You're not letting your light shine before men because you don't have the courage to get out into the world and really show people who God is. You got to understand, the gospel lives in you and the love of God lives in you. And it starts with showing your Christian qualities. You have character, you have integrity, you have morality, you have ethics. You know what the right thing to do is as a Christian. And sometimes all you have to do is just whisper into somebody's ear, you're better than that. And it clicks and they say, you know what, you're absolutely right. What you've done is unlocked a door that now you have the opportunity. And not only did that person, experience the love of God, because this is something Jesus would do, but all the people standing around said, wait a second, something amazing just happened. We wanted this girl to strip down naked. This dude comes in and says, hey, you don't need to do that. And everything changes. That's incredible to think about. So what I'm trying to tell you is like the best practical way to share the gospel and to share the love of God with people is to literally let your light shine before men. Go to the dark places. Go to the bars and the clubs and all the places that all these youth pastors are telling you not to go. Go to all the places where the pastors are telling you not to go. Because the pastors aren't interested in saving the world. They're not interested in discipleship. They like to talk about it because it makes good sermons and it makes them sound good, but when it really comes down to it, they're not about that. These people are terrified. They don't have the courage to go to these places. They like to talk about it, but they're afraid to go there. We know they're afraid because they don't tell people to go there. And you're afraid because you don't want to go there. I'm dead serious. This is something that Christians really need to understand. You have to go to the bars. You have to go to the clubs. You got to go to the dark places. You got to go to the strip clubs. You can't be afraid of it. You can't be afraid of it. You say, well, what if I fall into sin? Well, you need to get your life straight first, buddy. Then go into ministry. Sometimes the best kind of ministry is the ministry where you just say, hey, you know what? You're better than that. Listen, if you like this video, let me know in the comments below. If you like the story, let me know in the comments below. Also, let me know what you think about, putting your lamp underneath the table. Do you think that you have put your lamp under the table? Maybe you know somebody else who's done that. I have some more playlists up here if you want to go and check them out. Don't forget to click the big red A, because when you do, you subscribe to the channel. You help me reach the goal of 1 million subscribers, and you get a brand new video every single day. My name's Adam Jordan Clark. Thanks for watching. As always, I will see you in the next video.